In 1921, a Stanford psychologist named Louis Terman went hunting for the next generation of geniuses. He tested over 250,000 California school children. He selected, say, 521 with IQs above 140. He called them the termites and tracked them for the rest of their natural lives. Most of them became dentists, accountants, mid-level managers. One became a typesetter. None won a Nobel Prize. 2 children Terman rejected from his study. Boys who didn't quite clear the IQ bar won Nobel Prizes in physics. William Shockley, Luis Walter Alvarez. The smartest kids in California didn't shape the century. The ones who barely missed the cutoff did. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And the pattern is exactly what most gifted adults spend their entire lives refusing to see. The story most people tell themselves about intelligence is a comforting lie. The lie goes like this. Smart people end up successful, and if they don't, the world failed to recognize them. The genius is undiscovered. The genius is misunderstood. The genius was crushed by mediocrity. The truth is colder. The genius was crushed by themselves. Intelligence, the kind that gets you praised in childhood, the kind that makes adults whisper gifted over your shoulder, is not a tool. It is a sedative. It rewards your brain for recognizing what needs to be done so heavily that recognition becomes indistinguishable from what you're doing. You see the solution, you feel the relief. The dopamine fires and nothing changes in your life. Scott Barry Kaufman, the cognitive psychologist, who has spent over a decade studying gifted underachievement, describes it bluntly. Cognition without execution is a prison built from your own ceiling. The smart person doesn't fail because they're too smart for the world. They fail because their intelligence is doing all the things in their head that it should be doing in their hands. And this is where Robert Greene's view of power becomes useful. Potential means very little until it is converted into visible action. Discipline and results. What follows are the 5 traps that catch them, not the obvious ones, not the self-help ones. The traps that work precisely because the person inside them is too clever to see them. The first trap is the most invisible, and almost every gifted child falls into it before they're old enough to vote. Watch a smart person read a book on productivity. Their eyes move quickly. They nod, they underline. By the time they close the book, they have a complete picture of how to restructure their life. The system is elegant. The plan is sharp. They feel different, better, equipped. 3 months later, nothing has changed. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of discipline. This is something more specific and more cruel. Their brain rewarded them for understanding the system as if they had implemented it. There is a real mechanism behind this. The neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz spent decades mapping how dopamine fires in primate brains. His finding, replicated countless times since the 90s, is that dopamine doesn't reward you for getting what you want. It rewards you for the moment your brain predicts you will get it. The hit comes on the upswing of recognition. By the time the actual reward arrives, the chemistry is already calm. The smart person lives almost permanently inside that upswing. They recognize what their life needs. They recognize the path to fitness, to wealth, to mastery, to the relationship they want. Recognition arrives in seconds because their cognitive engine is fast. The dopamine fires. The internal sense of progress is satisfied, and the body never moves. Robert Greene's ideas about mastery point toward the same uncomfortable truth. Knowing the path is not the same as walking it. A person can understand every principle of discipline, power, strategy, and human nature and still remain powerless if that knowledge never becomes repeated action. This is why the most insightful person in your friend group often has the most stagnant life. They are constantly being paid in counterfeit currency. The sensation of having it figured out sits so close to the sensation of having done it that their nervous system can't tell the difference. Less intelligent people don't have this problem. They have to do the thing to feel the thing. The hit only comes when the work is done. The genius is the one whose brain lets them experience the reward of accomplishment without the inconvenience of accomplishing. That bookshelf full of half-read self-improvement books. Each one was a small dopamine economy. The reader paid in attention and was paid back in feeling smart. The transaction completed before the application phase ever began. This is trap 1. Once you understand it, you will start to see it everywhere. In your friends, in the people you admire, in the people you envy, and if you are honest, in yourself. The recognition sedative only works if the person already believes they're special. And that belief, the deep, unexamined certainty that they are different, gifted, marked, comes from somewhere very specific. In 1998, a psychologist named Carol Dweck ran an experiment at Columbia that should have changed how we raise children. It didn't. She gave 5th graders a series of puzzles. After they finished, half the children were praised for being smart. You must really be intelligent. The other half were praised for working hard. You must have tried really hard. She offered all of them a choice, a harder puzzle or an easier one. The children praised for intelligence overwhelmingly chose the easier puzzle. The children praised for effort overwhelmingly chose the harder one. Dweck repeated the experiment with variations for years. The pattern never broke. Praising children for intelligence didn't produce children who pursue challenges. It produced children who avoided them. Once a child believes they are smart, being smart becomes a status they have to protect. Every challenge becomes a referendum on their identity. A hard problem isn't a problem to solve. It's a threat. Failing the problem doesn't mean they didn't solve a puzzle. It means they're not who they thought they were. This is the praise paradox. The exact words meant to lift a gifted child are the words that calcify them. By the time the gifted child becomes a gifted adult, their entire identity is a load-bearing wall. They cannot afford to attempt anything that might bring it down. So they specialize. They retreat. They take on tasks where their intelligence is the dominant variable, and they avoid any arena where it isn't. This is where Greene's emphasis on reputation becomes relevant. Once intelligence becomes part of your reputation, protecting the image of being brilliant can become more important than taking the risks required to actually become formidable. You stop playing to win and start playing to avoid looking weak. And that is how a gift quietly becomes a trap. This is why so many high IQ adults end up in narrow domains where they can dominate, even when those domains have no relationship to what they actually wanted from life. They wanted to write a novel. They became a corporate strategist. They wanted to start a company. They became a senior consultant who explains to founders what's wrong with their companies. They wanted to live an interesting life. They built a life that protects their identity from any test that might break it. The Hungarian-American mathematician Paul Halmes once said that the difference between a great mathematician and a competent one isn't intelligence. It's the willingness to look stupid for hours at a time. The competent ones can't stand the feeling, so they work on problems they already know they can solve. The greats sit inside not knowing for days, weeks, months, and let it pass through them without flinching. The praise-poison mind cannot do this. Looking stupid threatens the wall. So, the gifted adult built a small kingdom of guaranteed wins and calls it a life. And then, when the kingdom feels too small, they tell themselves they're meant for more and reach for something so distant, so improbable that achieving it doesn't count, which is the next trap. The gifted underachiever has two settings: things they can do perfectly and things that don't count. There is no middle. A normal person sees a continuum of effort and outcome. They try things they might be okay at. They take things they might miss. They occupy the middle ranges of competence, the boring mortal range where most of life actually happens. The gifted adult avoids the middle. The middle is the danger zone. In the middle, you can be measured. In the middle, your performance is legible. In the middle, I'm smart, gets tested against an actual outcome and either holds up or doesn't, so they bifurcate. On one side, they take on tasks they have already mastered or that sit far below their capability. They do these reliably and well, and they get small reinforcements. You're so good at this. On the other side, they fantasize about pursuits so grand that the absence of action requires no explanation. They will write a novel that redefines literature. They will start a company that disrupts an industry. They will decompose a body of work that outlasts them. Notice those second things are unfalsifiable. As long as they don't start, they can't fail. The dream lives intact in the realm of pure potential. The middle, the actual book, the actual business, the actual training never gets built because the middle is where the gifted adult would have to be. Average for a long time before becoming good. And being average is the one thing their identity cannot tolerate. Robert Greene's work repeatedly returns to the idea that mastery is built through apprenticeship, repetition, and a willingness to occupy a lower position while you learn the game. The gifted adult wants the status of mastery without passing through the stage where mastery is invisible. They want the kingdom without the years spent learning how to build it. David Epstein, in his book range, documents what he calls the match quality problem. The longer someone delays trying things they might fail at, the worse their judgment becomes about what they're actually suited to do. They make career changes based on protracted fantasy rather than tested reality. They end up in fields they never tested themselves against because testing was the dark part they avoided. There is a darker version of this trap. The gifted adult begins to use the fantasy itself as evidence. They feel a private superiority over the colleague who actually published the mediocre book, started the failing company, finished the perfect album. The colleague did the thing. The colleague is now a person whose work can be judged. The gifted adult is still pure potential, and pure potential in their internal scoring system beats imperfect achievement every time. This is the cruelest part of the asymmetric standard. It allows the person to lose at life while feeling like they're winning. The colleague publishes a forgettable book. The gifted adult is still going to write the great one eventually, when they're ready, when the conditions are right, when the inspiration strikes. The conditions never become right. The inspiration is not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is the willingness to be ordinary in public for as long as it takes to become extraordinary. And the gifted adult will not be ordinary in public. So they end up with nothing. But the nothing is decorated with the most elaborate justifications a human mind can produce. Here is something most people who study intelligence will not tell you in public. A high IQ does not mean the rest of your brain is high-performing. It means one specific cluster of cognitive abilities is high-performing. Pattern recognition, working memory, verbal reasoning, the things tests measure. Executive function, the system that takes what your brain knows and turns it into what your hands actually do, is governed by an entirely different region, the prefrontal cortex. And in many gifted individuals, the executive function is not just average, it is actively underdeveloped. Peg Dawson, the clinical psychologist who has worked with gifted adults for over 30 years, describes a pattern she calls asynchronous development. The cognitive engine grew up faster than the operator. Their analytical mind reached adult sophistication by age 12. Their ability to organize, plan, initiate, sustain attention, manage emotion, and follow through stayed roughly 14. This is not a metaphor. This is observable. Researchers studying gifted children through fMRI work in the 2010s found that highly cognitively advanced kids often showed delayed maturation of prefrontal regions, the parts of the brain responsible for self-regulation and goal pursuit. The cognitive horsepower develops first. The driver shows up late. Sometimes the driver never shows up at all. This is why a brilliant adult can simultaneously hold a doctoral level understanding of personal finance and not be able to pay their electricity bill on time. It's not contradiction, it's neurology, the part of the brain that understands. The bill is not connected at any functional level to the part of the brain that pays it. The gifted child learns very early that they can compensate. School is a low execution environment for them. The demands are spread out, the deadlines are forgiving, and raw cognitive power can rescue them from any crisis the night before. So they never develop the boring, underlying systems other students had to build to survive. Then they enter adult life where execution is everything and cognition is a commodity, and their entire structure collapses. This is the part that should reframe everything I've said so far. The genius who ends up with nothing is not in most cases suffering from arrogance or laziness or fear. They are suffering from a specific neurological imbalance their environment never forced them to address, because their cognitive gifts hid the deficit at every stage where it could have been caught. By the time the deficit becomes visible to them, it is decades old, deeply automated, and woven into every habit they have. They cannot think their way out because thinking is the part that works. The broken part is the part that turns thought into motion. And here is what almost nothing in self-help literature will admit. Thinking harder makes the imbalance worse. The more they analyze the problem, the more dopamine they pull from the cognitive side, and the less remains to fund the executive side. They are quite literally feeding the wrong system. Robert Greene's approach to mastery makes this distinction brutal but useful. Knowledge only becomes power when it is converted into practice, repetition, and observable results. A person can understand strategy perfectly and still remain strategically weak if they never put themselves through the apprenticeship that turns theory into instinct. This is the moment in the gifted adult's life where most of them break. Most never recover. They learn to live inside the gap, to use their intelligence, to write elaborate explanations for why their life looks the way it does. The explanations are sophisticated. The lives are small. It is contempt for ordinary methods. Watch them when someone describes a successful career. The hard work, the relentless networking, the years of saying yes to things beneath them, the slow accumulation of relationships and reputation, and small unglamorous wins. Watch their face. Something flickers, a microscopic dismissal, a thought they will never say out loud. That's not real success. That's just persistence. Anyone could do that. Real success is what I would do if I bothered. This is the contempt reflex, and it is the final lock on the door. The gifted adult has internalized the idea that intelligence should be a shortcut, that cleverness should circumvent the slow, unsexy work that ordinary people have to do. Networking is for people without ideas. Marketing is for people without substance. Showing up consistently is for people without inspiration. Self-promotion is beneath them. Asking for things is undignified. Doing what other people are doing is unoriginal. So they refuse to do those things. Not because they can't, because doing them would mean admitting that intelligence isn't the magic key they were promised it was. That even they with their gifts would have to put in the same boring reps as everyone else. Adam Grant, in his work on hidden potential, points out that the highest performers in any field are rarely the most talented. They are the ones most willing to do unglamorous work for unglamorous lengths of time. The elite violinist who practiced fundamentals at age 40, the world-class surgeon who reviews basic anatomy on weekends, the novelist who writes garbage for 2 years to find a voice. Talent without that willingness is just unspent currency. The gifted adult watching this feels a familiar discomfort. Doing unglamorous work would force them to be visible in a state of mediocrity. It would force them to be a beginner at 40, at 50 in a public way. It would require them to surrender the one thing their identity has been built around, the assumption that they were past beginning. They would rather have nothing, and eventually they do. The contempt reflex isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself as contempt. It dresses itself up as standards, as taste, as discernment. I'm not going to network like that. I'm not going to chase trends. I'm not going to lower myself to that kind of self-promotion. What they're actually saying is something simpler and more brutal. I cannot tolerate being a beginner in front of strangers. The translation is uncomfortable but accurate, and the cost is paid in the lives they did not build, because the contempt reflex talked them out of every entry point into building one. Step back from the 5 traps for a moment. The recognition sedative, feeling like you've done something simply by understanding it. The praise paradox, protecting an identity instead of building a life. The asymmetric standard, refusing the middle, where ordinary mortals build everything. The asynchronous mind, having engines without drivers. The contempt reflex, refusing the unglamorous reps that compound into outcomes. Look at these together. Notice what they share. None of them are intelligence problems. All of them are self-deception problems. The gifted adult is not failing because the world doesn't recognize him. The world is statistically slightly more inclined to recognize them than the average person. Recognition is not the bottleneck. Execution is. And every one of the 5 traps exists to insulate them from the moment of execution. The moment where their intelligence stops being a private possession and becomes a public, measurable, falsifiable claim. Each trap is a hiding place. The recognition sedative hides them from the discomfort of starting. The praise paradox hides them from the possibility of failing. The asymmetric standard hides them from the tedium of being mediocre on the way to good. The asynchronous mind hides them from the work of building executive systems. The contempt reflex hides them from the indignity of being a visible beginner. 5 hiding places. 1 person, 1 life, slowly filling the absence. Robert Greene's central lesson about mastery fits here with uncomfortable precision. The person who wants exceptional results must first accept the ordinary stages that produce them. There is no strategic shortcut around apprenticeship, repetition, failure, and the slow accumulation of skill. The gifted adult often understands this intellectually and still refuses to live it. There is a moment that comes for most of these adults. It usually arrives in the late 30s or early 40s. They look around at people they once dismissed and notice that people have built things, real things, companies that exist, books that are written, reputations that compound, relationships that have weathered decades. The gifted adult has none of these. They have a head full of unrealized concepts and a chest full of explanations. This is the moment most of them break. And the breaking takes one of 2 shapes. Shape 1, they collapse the lie. They look at themselves clearly. They accept that they have spent decades being smart instead of effective, and they begin the slow, brutal work of rebuilding. They take entry-level versions of everything they should have been doing for 20 years. They tolerate the humiliation. They build something. It is usually less than they fantasized about. It is infinitely more than they had. Shape 2, they protect the lie. They become bitter. They construct ever more sophisticated theories about why the world failed, to give them what they were owed. They become the smartest person in every comment section. They become the friend who explains with devastating clarity why everyone's success is fake or undeserved. They die clever and unbuilt. The choice between shape 1 and shape 2 is not made at 40. It is made every day in small moments starting somewhere around 22. Every time the gifted adult chooses to read another book about something instead of doing it, they vote for shape 2. Every time they refuse to attempt something they might be mediocre at, they vote for shape 2. Every time they feel that flicker of contempt for someone doing unglamorous work, they vote for shape 2. Every time they live inside a fantasy of who they could be, instead of becoming someone slightly worse but real, they vote for shape 2. The votes accumulate quietly. By the time the count is visible, the election is over. The genius who ends up with nothing was not destroyed by the world. The genius who ends up with nothing was destroyed by 1,000 small, comfortable choices to stay inside the experience of being smart instead of stepping into the experience of being effective. Lewis Terman believed his termites would shape the century. What he didn't realize, even as the data came in year after year, decade after decade, was that he had selected for the trap. Children with very high IQs were children whose intelligence had been visible early, whose parents and teachers had treated them as special, who had built identities around being smart before they had built habits, around being effective, who had lived inside the recognition sedative for 10 years before they hit puberty. He was not studying the brightest minds in California. He was studying the most identity-protected ones. Shockley and Alvarez, who didn't make his cut, were left to do the slow, ordinary work of becoming. They argued with people. They ran experiments that failed. They worked on problems beneath their station. They were not protected from being beginners, so they became scientists. The termites were protected, so they became dentists. If you have spent any part of your life being told you have potential, The question worth sitting with is not whether the praise was true. It probably was. The question worth sitting with is whether the praise has, in the years since, been functioning as a sedative or as a fuel. If it is a fuel, you are using it to do things, visible, mediocre, falsifiable things, and you're slowly stacking up a body of work the world can hold and judge. If it's a sedative, you're using it to stay warm inside, the feeling of who you could be. And the years are passing, and the work is not getting built, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know. Robert Greene would frame the choice more harshly. Potential has no strategic value until it is converted into disciplined action. And the person who keeps protecting the image of what they could become will eventually become a prisoner of that image. Most of the people who needed this video the most will hear it and feel a wave of recognition wash over them. They will nod. They will think, yes, this is exactly right. They will close the video, feeling slightly different, and they will do nothing. That more than anything else in a script is the thing to sit with. If you came here to cut closer than you expected, subscribe to the channel.